You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones, and Steve Brooker, the guy who got in touch on Twitter in the week to beg us to reject me from any future presenting gigs and hand over the reins to James Jones permanently. Well, I'm very sorry, but it is me back again on the back of a remarkable win at Wolverhampton Wanderers, West Ham United 3, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, and we threatened to bottle it again, just like we did against Arsenal. Throwing away 2-3-0 leads in a row would have been vintage West Ham, as someone in a group chat of mine put it earlier today. But we didn't. We held on. We dug in, and what a fantastic result it was as well, especially without our talismanic captain, leader, legend Declan Rice. But King Arthur was back. What a sight that was to behold. What a performance by the main man. Lads, you missed me last week. James, I mean, one thing you forgot to mention, a couple of little slide digs on the presenting. Fantastic job by you, by the way. Just like to give my heartfelt congratulations. Thought you were wonderful. But one thing you did forget to mention to the thousands of people that download this podcast every week, who would have no doubt showered me with get well soon messages, is that I actually had surgery the day before last week's podcast, which you failed to mention to anyone.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I mean, firstly, thanks for your glowing review of my presenting last week. You gave me 24 hours notice to prepare for that, and I just didn't know whether to tell the world that you were having surgery. I didn't know whether that was a real personal thing.
It could be
so
a
I left
private
that bit
matter,
out. I left that out of the reasons why you weren't on last week. But yeah, no, me and Tom enjoyed ourselves. But obviously we missed you, mate.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, listen back. You both did a fantastic job. Tom, especially detailed analysis from you as ever. But thank God anyone who was worried, but obviously they wouldn't have known because James didn't tell you. I had a triple foot bypass last week, or open foot surgery, whichever one you think sounds more serious. But no, nothing too serious at all. But I did have a legitimate sick note. The nurse came in actually, James, as I was coming round. And she said, "Oh, do you need a sick note?" I thought, "Oh, no, I've already told my work." I thought, actually, I better get one signed just so I can prove to the lads that I did actually have an operation. I didn't just fancy a week off. But Tom, wonderful to see you. Great job again last week. It was a really good listen. How are you?
All good, mate. It feels right to have you back, though. Yeah, as much as I enjoyed it last week with Jonesy, it's only right to have you back in a hot seat, mate. But I can't not be happy after yesterday, and looking forward to this very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke to my dad earlier and he came back and he said, I said, "How's your day?" He said, terrible. He said, "It's freezing out there." He said, "A couple of jobs I was on, just really, really not good." I said, "Oh, blimey." I said, "West Ham won 3-2 last night." I said, "It must have only been 10 hours before we won away, which before this season, we rarely ever do. We've done the double over Wolves. We're in fourth spot." I said, "Your day must have been really, really bad if even West Ham impending qualification for the Champions League didn't cheer you up." But no can do. Jonesy, I mean, what did you make of it last night? It was obviously we'll go into in detail as usual, but sort of straight off of the bat, just to welcome everyone back or welcome me back. Then the deadly duo, the deadly trio as it is now, are back. What did you make of the game?
I will let you boys and our listeners into a secret. When the third goal went in, I genuinely had a tear in my eye, and Lucy, sitting next to me, went, "Are you crying?" I was like, "Luce, I genuinely cannot tell you how happy I am at watching this. I have not been this happy watching West Ham for years, and it's just, I'd had tears in my eyes, and I think it's because the 3 goals that we scored were just so good. Every single one of them was class." And even when we went 3-0 up against Arsenal, Lingard's was good, but 3 relatively bog standard goals, and then you just get 3 world class goals, and it hit me over the edge, and I was a blubbering mess on the sofa for about 5 minutes. I was like, I can't believe it. But
you'd have been crying a damn sight more if they'd got back to 3-3, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been crying with anger, but yeah, it was just class, the whole thing. I mean, when then Donker got that header, and it was like, here we go again. I know you were already at 3-0, I think, weren't you? Going in the WhatsApp group, going, I might have a tenner on Wolves. But yeah, Yeah, just out of this world. And I don't think I've stopped watching Lingard's first goal and looking at I haven't gone 5 minutes without looking at the league table all day today. So yeah, long may this continue, boys.
Yeah, it was brilliant stuff, wasn't it, Tom? Lionel Jesse, Tom, what a man. He really, really is. I mean, he was, I remember I was one of the underwhelmed ones when we signed him, just thinking, he's been out in the sort of football wilderness for a while, not really getting a shout at Manchester United. Again, glad to eat that humble pie for sure. He's been wonderful, and last night I know his goal was spectacular, of course, but he was involved, of course, in the others. His all-round gameplay, I just thought he was absolutely phenomenal. I'd argue, I don't know what you think, Tom, that was the best game he's played for us.
Yeah, I think that, or Villa, there's so many times he's turned up, and it's his leadership in games like that, particularly when we didn't have Rice and Antonio then gets hooked off with that injury. We rely on him so much, and everything goes through him. Anything good that happens, he's heavily involved in. And just to see him take a game like that by the scruff of the neck in the first 15 minutes, first half, there's a highlight package going around on Twitter today, and it's actually a joke. Like this performance in his first half, every single touch he made is pure class. Don't think he gave the ball away once. Everything went through him. It was just a sublime display. In the first 45 minutes, I can't remember a West Ham side ever playing better or looking more likely to score at every God-given moment. We just looked superb, and it did all come through him. And as much as I was happy that he came in, there's not a single chance in hell I thought he'd put up these numbers. They're a joke, and I don't think anyone could have envisaged this. And I tweeted it this morning and yesterday probably about 15 times, but I don't remember a West Ham player playing better for 8 games in an 8-game stretch ever in my life. 6 goals, 3 assists and 2 pens won. It speaks for itself. He's unbelievable. Long live Jesse Lingard.
I saw that tweet, Tom, and Demba Ba is the last player I can remember who had an impact after signing in January. Obviously, we didn't stay up, but I think he scored like 9 goals in 12 games or something like that. But you're right. Yeah. Other than that, I can't think of anyone.
Yeah, I did. I don't know why, Tom. I don't know if you were tweeting more than usual, were you? But my timeline was quite full with Tom Edwards' tweets since the game. I was loving it, mate. Nothing too out there. There was a bit of it was quite your usual calamitous end of the world Armageddon stuff before the game, wasn't it? When Declan Rice was that was about bad as it gets. Yeah, that was. Yeah. I think you definitely hit Twitter rock bottom then, didn't you? But no, brilliant to see your online bipolar, as I think it's been officially diagnosed as, come back after the game. When delighted to see it happen. Look, lads, we'll go into it in a bit more detail as we usually would, but I think you'd have definitely taken 4 points from Arsenal and Wolves. Great to score 6 goals as well. There are negatives to be sort of taken, of course, especially after the Arsenal game. That was an anger-inducing one, but as you've said, James, just to bounce back like that, as we've done regularly this season, it is the sign of a big team and the better team that we have become. So wonderful to see that. We'll just do a bit of housekeeping. I'll let you know what's coming up on the show before we dive into that game, the Wolves reaction, in a little bit more detail. I'm delighted to say Tom Clark from Football London is joining us, West Ham correspondent, the man who replaced friend of the show, Sam Inkersole. He will be making his We Are West Ham debut later on. But James, first of all, a little bit of housekeeping. And, while I was, perhaps if you'd have told everyone at home that I had actually had surgery last week, that Steve Brooker it was who got in touch on Twitter after your presenting debut, might have been a little bit more sympathetic or empathetic towards my plight. But so as always, as part of the housekeeping, this part of the show, we encourage everyone to get in touch on Twitter at @WeAreWestHam, or they can email us wearewesthampod@gmail.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch all of these shows, as well as the cut up segments as individual videos, if that's your thing. The link to our YouTube channel is in the description to this podcast. And now you can support the podcast or buy me and the lads a beer at buymeacoffee.com/wearewestham. One of the things we always say is get in touch with your feedback, good and bad. We've read out some of the hilarious bad ones before. We've read out a few of the good ones only last week or the week before last. We read out Rob's absolutely lovely message that cheered us all up this week. Well, one message we got after James Jones did a sterling job of presenting the podcast last week did not cheer me up at all. And it's from Steve Brooker on Twitter. And Steve Brooker said, @WeAreOne_West Ham, please, that's 3 pleases. Can James Jones be the new regular presenter? Will sounds like he's trying too hard most of the time. James was much more natural sounding and easy on the ear. No offense, Will. Well, I took loads of offense, Steve. Great show. James was quick to reply on behalf of the podcast with loads of laughing emojis. Cheers, Steve. Are you okay? And he said, sorry, Will, you're a great lad, but you did ask for feedback. And I'm never going to ask for feedback ever again, I don't think. It was the 3rd please, James, that really got me. I think please, can James Jones be the host next week? Would have been fine. But 3 pleases, that's someone who really doesn't like the sound of my voice every week, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the 3 pleases probably just hammered home Steve's thoughts, and I'd like to thank Steve personally for his kind words. But I was thinking the other day, I was like, I don't really know where I stand with our listeners, because we had a review with some guy telling me that, you know, I could cure insomnia, and I've got Steve
Phantom Hammer.
Yeah, Phantom Hammer, and then you got Steve saying that I should be the presenter. So I don't really know where I stand with the listeners these days.
No, well, I think the one thing we do know, Jones, for sure, is that Tom is everyone's favourite, isn't he?
Yeah.
No one ever chimes.
They're all my
in with
burner
reviews
accounts,
from Tom
chaps.
Ed.
It's not real. These aren't real people you're talking to. I just got 100 burner accounts.
Yeah, Steve Brooker. It's not an anagram actually for Tom Edwards, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Could have made perfect sense.
That's it.
But yeah, look. Thanks for Steve for getting in touch. Very sorry that James won't be taking over from me permanently. I'll do my best to not sound like such a try hard, but I am trying very hard, as we all are, to make the We Are West Ham podcast good for you guys at home. Like I say, follow us on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham. Hit us up on YouTube. We are on Instagram as well, if that's your thing, and you can buy us a beer or support the pod at buymeacoffee.com/wearewestham. So a little bit what's coming up on the show tonight. We've got some Wolves reaction with Tom Clark, the West Ham correspondent for football.london. We'll discuss us coming out of the blocks like lightning again. Disappointing to see Michael Antonio come off. Was Issa Diop at fault for the 2 goals? And Mark Noble, of course, dominated West Ham Twitter sphere before and after the game. So we'll have a little bit of a chat about him as well. We'll have the Betway charity bets, the Wolves bets. Tom, again, so close, my friend. The opposition view with Jake Watson from Talk Sport, massive Leicester fan to look ahead to that game on Sunday. And Tom is the quiz master for Name That Game. We'll wrap it up with the West Ham women, and what a win that was. We thought West Ham's win against Wolves was brilliant, but the West Ham women winning 5-0, or they were 5-0 up at half time against Reading to give them a huge boost in their push for survival in the WSL. And then that'll be it. We'll say goodbye and we'll wrap up with a brief Fantasy Premier League update at the end, which I don't think James Jones will want to do, given that he played his wild card and still didn't manage to be the top scorer out of me, James and Tom. And then, like I say, we'll say goodbye for another week. But lads, it's an exciting one this week. Tom, just quickly before we go into it in part 2 in a little bit more detail, there's lots to talk about tonight. What's your we've mentioned already the Declan Rice injury, Mark Noble. There was a lot of nervousness before the game about whether or not he should even play, and should Connor Coventry be given a chance instead. There's the Lingard performance. What's your what's the thing that's been dominating your thoughts since the game, mainly, like the main talking point, if there's one?
Since the game, as much as this is a day for positivity and the squad proved that we are superb and we've got enough to win football games, for me, I've been waking up and I've been worried about the Antonio one in particular and his health going forward. I mean, Rice is superb and he's not more or less important than Antonio, but we do have Noble's experience, and he can get through 7-8 games a season, and it's 4 or 5 likely with Rice, isn't it? But without Antonio, it means that Lingard's got to change position. Bowen's got to have new responsibilities. It sort of affects the fabric of the side in terms of the way we set up a little bit more and the way we hit teams on the counter. And I just worry about his health going forward. I think you saw that 30 minutes. He was literally unplayable. I've never seen someone bully a centre-half quite the way he did to Cody. It was it was pretty disgraceful if you're looking at a Southgate, because it was a bullying job. And I think just him, what we'll miss from him going forward for me against Leicester in the big games coming up, I think is a worry. So I'm just hoping to hear some positive news on that, but can't be negative about anything else really.
Yeah, no. I was just wondering. Well, I agree with you, because it's easy to, when we win games like that, it's easy to gloss over some of the supposed negatives. And I think Moyes sort of mentioned it afterwards, didn't he? Alluded to conceding 5 goals in 2 games isn't that great either, and a stat that he's overly thrilled with. Jones, what's yours? What's your sort of main the thing out of all of the stuff we've got to talk about before we get Tom Clark on from Football London to go into it in more detail? Is there one sort of standout thing for you that has been dominating your mind, either good or bad?
I mean, I agree with Tom in the Antonio thing, and we spoke about it in January, didn't we? Like this, it was always going to happen. It was going to happen at some point, and we should have at least got someone in that could deputise for him in that position. But we did mention briefly back in January that Bowen can do a job there, and within 4 minutes, less than that, of replacing Antonio, he found the back of the net with a great run to support Lingard. Lingard plays him in and he scores. And that's part. I'm thinking, well, maybe okay, we're not going to have the strength and like the ability to bully a centre half like Antonio does and did first half an hour on Monday night, but Bowen can do a job there. He did it at Hull when he was playing up front for Hull, banged into, I know it's the Championship, but he was banging goals left, right and centre for them. And you just wonder whether, okay, losing Antonio is a blow. Jarrod Bowen, I think, proved on Monday night that he can be, a worthwhile deputy while Antonio's getting back fit if he's out for a while. So maybe it's not panic stations as such, and maybe, we probably need to put a little bit more faith into Bowen in terms of, playing that role and delivering.
There you go. Well, look, we'll see. Like I say, we'll get into it in a load more detail. The thing that I'm thinking about just now is it's so important about signing Lingard. I just think, we've paid for the talk that Man United want 40 odd million for him. Well, we paid that sort of money for Felipe Anderson and Sebastian Haller. I know we recouped only 25 of Haller's, but that would be the most sensible 40 million I think any football club has ever spent ever. It's not like he's too old either, is he? He's still in like the prime years of his career, so to speak. So look, we'll get Tom Clark from Football.London's thoughts on that next, because in part 2 we'll have some more detailed reaction to that fantastic win at Wolves. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast. Just like to apologise once again to any of you out there who echo Steve Brooker's thoughts, who are absolutely desperate for James Jones to take over presenting duties from me after I had 1 week off, but no can do, I'm afraid. But I'm delighted to say that joining us for a debut on the We Are West Ham podcast, I've had a few of those in recent weeks. I'm delighted to welcome the Football.London West Ham correspondent, Tom Clark. Tom took over from Sam Ingersoll at the turn of the new year. Sam, obviously a regular guest on the podcast before he switched to the dark side of London, or the dark blue side of West London to be precise. But Tom, wonderful to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. Great to have you on. First of many appearances, I hope. How have you found your new gig since you took over at the new year? Because you're obviously doing something right.
Cheers, lads. Yeah, it's nice to be on. Yeah, I mean, it's been brilliant taking over from Sam. Obviously, he did a cracking job, and then but the team have just I didn't see this coming, to be honest. Like as a football fan in general, I was following West Ham. I'd watched them earlier in the season and seen some good performances, some not so good performances. Definitely didn't see them going from 10th to 4th in the space of a few weeks of taking over. And just fingers crossed it keeps going. I'd love to be covering some Champions League football next season, and hopefully Sam will be down in the Europa Conference League or something.
yeah, exactly that. That would be quite the scout, wouldn't it? Quite the switch around. But Tom, I'm assuming of course you're at the Wolves game last night. One of the fortunate few. We were out the blocks like absolute lightning once again. Obviously, we all know it was a mirror image first half to what happened against Arsenal the week before. I saw a Twitter video You did. I don't know whether that was today or yesterday. It might have been straight after the game, actually, just sort of giving your thoughts about what it's like to actually be there. And I know you mentioned about Mark Noble. We'll ask you about that in more detail. But what's it been like being at the games? What have you found from the team that those of us watching from afar might not have been able to see?
And it's really weird, and I know everybody says it that they miss fans, but you do. Like, it is really, really strange without fans. And one of the things you pick up on is you can hear them. You can hear the players so clearly and the managers. So you learn who the talkers are in the team, but you also hear what they're saying. And it's really funny at times because, I don't know, like as an amateur footballer, and I played a lot of amateur football, and it's so basic, the information you give to each other. You kind of think that Premier League players, that they're so much better than we ever are playing on our Sunday mornings, that they must actually, communicate better with each other. Nothing of the sort. It's the same stuff that we say to each other. It's box them in, lads. Box them in. As professional footballers, but that you're still shouting that at each other. It's really interesting to hear that side of it, and to hear who the talkers are. And I mean, the way West Ham started yesterday, like you say, it was so similar to the Arsenal game, but I think it was actually even better than the Arsenal game. Antonio was brilliant yesterday. It's like he went off after whatever it was, 35, 36 minutes, and got to really hope that isn't serious because he was brilliant yesterday. It's the best I've seen him play by an absolute mile. I've seen him come back from a couple of injuries and he didn't look fit. The first game I covered in person was Stockport away, and that was his first game back after, I don't know, 5 or 6 games out, possibly longer. And there were a couple of times when the ball was played through to him, you just think, fully fit, he'd get that, no problem. Like there's no way that the defender would have got back. And yesterday he was just not like physically fitter, like to look at, because he's a unit of a man anyway, but just he was just on it. He just, that first shot that hit the post, he bullied the defense. The shot, actually, the last thing he did before he went down injured, he still had that shot, and he was, the shot wasn't how he got injured. It was the run, it was the fighting for the ball, and hopefully it's just something minor, but he still got his shot off, and he was still through 3 players. He had no right to get through them and have that shot. And that was really good to see how that was the fittest and the best I've seen him play. It was only 36 minutes, but he was not like Bowen came on and did badly. He scored after 2 minutes, but Antonio, you got to hope that's not serious.
Just on that, but obviously you mentioned Bowen came on and he got his goal within, was it 3 minutes or something like that? Do you think that if Antonio's injury is, it means he's going to be out for 3 or 4 games? Do you think Bowen can do a job there? He's not going to be the strong, hold the ball up, physical presence that Antonio is, but he proved within 3 minutes that he can still make those those clever runs in behind. Do you think that we should be putting probably a little bit more faith and trust into someone like Bowen?
Yeah, I think he'll have to do the job. So it's Moyes will get behind him and back him. He'll try and encourage him, and he also offers a little bit of flexibility, because like later in the game, Lingard went through the middle and Bowen went to the right when it was 3-2 and they were just trying to see the game out, and it just became very much a 5-4-1. And also Lingard was getting a bit of cramp and tiring, so he was going to be wasted out on the wing, not being able to track back, and it was Adama Traore's wing as well. So you can't be having cramp when he's running at you, that's for sure. But I think, Bowen does give a little bit of flexibility, so maybe Lingard will go through the middle, but you don't really want to. I think he kind of needs that free role playing in behind. We saw it in the first half yesterday. The second half was a different game. It was different type of game. Wolves were coming at them a bit more, but I think Bowen will have to do that job, because Mipo Udebeka, and I haven't seen him play for the under-23, so I can only base it on the slight. The few minutes that I've seen him play, but he doesn't look ready for the first team, which kind of suggests that Bowen is pretty much the option there. I mean, you can juggle things around. You can maybe put Lingard there, and then Ben Rama could come in and take Lingard's role, but I think it's Bowen. I think, and Moyes has said it in a couple of press conferences before that Ben Rama has done it for Hull, not a huge amount, but he did do it a bit for Hull, so he does know where the runs are. And Antonio is a converted wide man. Arnautovic is a converted wide man. So 3 is, why not go for a third time lucky?
Tom, another one of our wide men is Pablo Fornals, and he sort of goes under the radar from most West Ham fans. But I think we've always really appreciated him on this podcast. And yesterday, yet again, he showed what he's all about. How important do you think he is going forward, not only this season, but the following season? Because he looks like he's only getting better. Do you now think he's firmly in Moyes' head as our starting man on that side, at least?
Yeah, I think he's a very good player. And I think I see it as well. You see it on Twitter, and it seems a real like 50-50 of the fans who like him and the fans who don't. And I don't get it. I don't get why people don't like him. Okay, he's not,
we had this chat, James, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? And I think me and James said similar things, didn't we, James? Sorry to butt in, Tom, but I think they're more misgivings. It always feels like when he gets on the ball, everything all of a sudden seems to slow down a level, and it perhaps gets a little bit clunky and a little bit uncomfortable and awkward every now and then. Whereas I think perhaps because he's playing alongside players like Bowen and Lingard, particularly, who are pace and quite fluid with their movements, that it often seems like Fornals is paying at half a gear behind everyone else sometimes. But again, last night it absolutely made fools of anyone who has doubted him, because I thought he was phenomenal.
I think I understand where you're coming from there, and I think instead of concentrating on what he can't do, look at what he can do, because he's not as skillful as Ben Rama. I covered Brentford a lot last season. I've seen a lot of side Ben Rama. I love watching him, and I really hope he gets that goal soon. I think that will do wonders for his confidence, and he will come good. He is a really good football player. He's more skillful than Fornals for sure, but he doesn't work as hard as him. He doesn't keep the ball as well as him. So it's kind of like Fornals is really good at, you say the easy pass, but it's not the easy pass. He was on the edge of his box with that flick last night. If that goes wrong, he gets hammered for that. That's showing some guts, but it's kind of like Jose Mourinho would say, like when Dele Alli does it. If it comes off and it's on the edge of your box, it's brilliant. Wonderful footballer. If he gives it away, he gets hammered for it. And Moyes probably wouldn't have come out and hammered him for it, but the fan base might have done. It was brave. Brave, stupid, very fine line. It was brave. It came off. Honestly, if that, it could so easily have gone wrong, because that was Soufal's head. It was 20 yards out. When you see him do it, you see it live. It was a bit like risky, but then when it comes off and it just created space, brilliant. He keeps the ball well. He recycles it well. He's a tidy footballer, but he's not as dynamic as others. No, but I think he's won Moyes over for sure. I think he's a starter when fit. So he'd had a couple of games out, but Bowen was the one to miss out yesterday. Okay, obviously things changed a bit with Rice's injury, but Fornals was straight back in the team the minute he was fit enough to play. And had he been fit the week before against Arsenal and the game against Manchester United, no doubt he would have been in the team.
Yeah, he's certainly he's more effective, isn't he, against those bigger teams? Like you say, that work rate is all the more valuable against the bigger sides. One man who seems to have sort of fallen into obscurity somewhat at West Ham is Issa Diop. He sort of had a little bit of a resurgence on his recent run in the team, but there's no doubt whatsoever that Angelo Ogbonna has been the star man, and Craig Dawson, against all of the odds, has muscled his way into West Ham's number one centre-back spot alongside Ogbonna. Diop, it seemed to me last night, and I don't know if I'm being harsh here, but looking at the goals, it seemed like he was at fault. He was a little way off of Dendoncker when that cross comes in, and it wasn't like the cross took a deflection or anything like that. He was streaking down the left Traore, so it was obvious what he was going to do, and he was a few yards off of his man. What do you make of him, and am I being a bit harsh there?
I certainly think he was at fault for the second goal. The first goal, sometimes you have to say the opposition. It was a good goal. I mean, it was a brilliant cross from Traore, because Noble tries to take him out on the halfway line and couldn't get close to him, which is that's nothing on Noble. That's Traore, because then Traore is away from Soufal and Lingard and Fornals. He just, I mean, he's probably I don't know if he is, but he's probably the fastest player in the Premier League. And one of my WhatsApp groups with a bunch of friends, it was they always talk about him having no end product, and then suddenly just got a load of messages like, oh, end product. He's suddenly got an end product. Brilliant cross that, and an absolutely thumping header from Dendoncker. So yeah, yes, Diop was off him, but sometimes you just say that cross was absolutely on the money. Second goal, absolutely, and Diop was Johnson had just come on. He'd only been on a couple of minutes or so, and Diop was. You could see when the ball was being played, he was signalling whether it was Creswell or Johnson he wanted to tuck in, but it was his man. He needed to.
Creswell had gone with the man, hadn't he? He'd gone
Yeah.
with the ball, so it felt like he needed to come across cover.
Yeah, it was absolutely that was Diop's man, and one thing that I've noticed with Diop, and I found it really, really odd the first time I saw him play, was how much he needs constant communication from. It's normally Dawson is normally the one. Dawson is a very, very vocal player anyway. It's normally Dawson, but it's really like minute information, like stand here, do this. But then there was one time when Dawson had gone up for a corner or free kick, or something. It was a few games ago, and Diop he didn't know where to stand, and he looked over, and it was Kevin Nolan was on the side, and it was like 2 meters. He was telling him to move 2 meters, and like, you're 23, 24, whatever he is, you're a Premier League footballer. That kind of stuff is like a really athletic player, as he showed against Arsenal with a goal line clearance. And, he really wanted to have a run in the last minute of the game yesterday, but he's very athletic, and he's good at bringing the ball out like that. But there's little bits of his game that he needs people telling him what to do. And Ogbonna doesn't have that. Ogbonna comes straight back in the minute he's fit, and him and Dawson, Dawson is a good player, and like you say, it was a bit of a surprise how well he's done. He also looks a much better player when he's playing alongside Ogbonna than he does when he's alongside Diop.
Tom, the big story leading up to Monday's game was obviously Deccan Rice's injury. And I mean, I think I put in our WhatsApp group, the podcast group, was this is the end of the world as we know it. Because genuinely just thought, well, that's it then. If Deccan Rice is out for a few games, we're screwed. I think Will was asking Betway what the odds were for West Ham to finish outside the top 10. That's how panicked we were. But then Noble steps in, having been almost the scapegoat for a lot of poor performances and a lot of bad results, some of the bad results we've had this season, or the few bad results we've had this season. He steps in and put in a quality performance. Do you think that can be a consistent theme while Deccan Rice is injured, or do you think he was just he wanted to go out there and prove himself from the off that he's still got it?
I think the system helped him. I mean, when the away game at Chelsea, when he played as the number 10, the game just passed him by. That was I would put that more on Moyes than Noble. He was in a position where he shouldn't be, where the Chelsea players found it too easy to get past him, and he doesn't have the legs to sprint 50 yards back chasing the players. And a couple of times last night, obviously Traore got away from him. That's going to happen. He had 3 men behind him, and he had Souček play deeper yesterday, and that's the deepest I'd seen him play. He didn't get forward. He obviously had one disallowed, and he had a half chance from a header from memory. I think it was in the first or second half. I can't really remember, but he wasn't in the box an awful lot, so he'd obviously been told to play a little bit deeper. And I think, Noble can absolutely do a job for the rest of the season or for however long Rice is out, if the system is set up to help him. And I think he needs to know that he's got cover if somebody does get past him, and Souček to sit next to him. But Rice is a huge miss. Absolutely, of course he is. Don't think it's the end of the world, but yes, he's going to be a huge miss, and it'll be interesting to see against Leicester this coming weekend. I assume he'll play the 3 at the back or the 5 at the back. It is very, very fluid. It's something you notice when you get the whole picture. It is a very fluid system. We tried to pin it down a couple of times and say, oh, they're playing a 5 at the back, and then within 2 minutes, Masuaku is the furthest man forward, and then it is fluid. It's very much a 5 in defence, but then 3. The wing backs do have a lot of license to get forward, and like when Diop in the first half he collected the ball, he went on a run, and Noble just there's no communication needed. Noble just right, I'm sitting in covering for him. That's that sorted, and that's something that maybe Declan Rice wouldn't do as much, because he's also got the legs to get forward, knowing that he's got the pace to get back. Whereas Noble isn't going to make that run if one of the defenders has gone in front of him. He's there just holding that position, or screaming at Diop to not even think about it. Not sure what your policy is on industrial language here, but it was quite funny, and it was in injury time, and it was Diop made this it was a lovely interception, laid it off, and he was gone. And then just these two voices were on at him, and yeah, his run did not get past that halfway line, and they were having absolutely none of it. And they told him that you're not doing
the voices?
That. Noble and Dawson. was right on at him in the first half as well. There was a cross came in and he wasn't tight enough to his man, and it was the far side of the pitch, and we didn't have any screens or any replays yesterday, so I wasn't sure what he'd done wrong, and I tweeted it out because Dawson was going absolutely nuts at him, but somebody replied saying no, he was just a meter off his man, that it should have been him, and yeah, Dawson doesn't hold back. It doesn't matter who you are. He did it to Lingard a couple of weekends ago as well. He was really positive the first time he was screaming at him, just, come on, Jesse, lad, we need your help. And then 30 seconds later, he hadn't got back and he went both barrels at him. It's funny to hear, especially when you're in the London Stadium and you are quite far away from them. But yeah, that voice travels round.
Tom, having the luxury to be around the players and sort of see their celebrations, see their togetherness more than any of us who can't go to the games and see what it's like at the end of those big victories. Do you think that now they're starting to genuinely believe that there's something special and that there's a feeling that it might be our time to do something special? Because they're very mellow in the press and keep it very casual, but we are fourth with 8 games to go. And if I'm not wrong, I think we've got 6 of the bottom 8 left to play, which is better than anyone else around us. And I think we don't really get to see those reactions. What do you think from the camp? Do you think that they're starting to truly believe now that this is our year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've been told, that they're very media trained, and I think they've been told not to. And Moyes has even said to us, is like, we've asked a question. He said, even if I did think that, I wouldn't say it to you, but that doesn't mean I'm not saying it to them. Kind of suggests that he is probably, and has been for a few weeks now. I'm not saying maybe he wasn't saying Champions League, but he was probably saying to them, look, we've got a very, very good chance of Europe here, and then when we get to 8, 9, 10 games to go, if we're still in the mix, then possibly Champions League. I think one thing he does say, and I do agree with him, that even though West Ham are 4th right now, if they were to drop a couple of places, finish 6th and finish in the Europa League, it's still a brilliant season. Like it might feel a little bit disappointing, but it really shouldn't. It's already, West Ham have exceeded all expectations. Like the points tally alone is way above what it was. But yeah, I think the players are starting to believe. I think they have believed for a while. They've got guys in there in Soufal and Souček. It was quite a pointed comment Moyes said a few weeks ago. Like, these guys are used to winning. They win the league in the Czech Republic all the time. They're used to Champions League football. And Soufal is an awful, awful loser. He is absolutely devastated every time they lose, even if it's at Manchester City, where played really well and lost 2-1. I thought West Ham were going to get absolutely hammered there, not because West Ham aren't a good team, just because Man City are brilliant. I thought City would put a few goals on them. I really did, and I said it before. I fully expected. We do these predictors, and I had that absolutely down as a Man City win, and I was really excited to go to the game because I wanted to watch the likes of Kevin De Bruyne play football. It's a privilege to watch players and watch someone like him. He didn't actually have a very good game. The chance to see players like that, but Soufal was devastated at the final whistle, and that's such a good attitude to have. Lingard, he's used to playing Man United. They don't lose many games. He's scoring in cup finals. He's used to winning as well. I think there's an attitude there that this, if not now, then when? Is this season going to be repeated next year? Can't say with any honesty. It is.
No, well, that's I think what we're all hoping for. I think bigger picture wise, but West Ham fans want to see us challenging for Europe, not necessarily the Champions League. I think Jamie Carragher touched on it on Sky on the coverage the other night. He said, the West Ham fans, they don't think they should be in the Champions League every year, but that club should be challenging for Europe every year. So either that is the Europa League, and that is what fans want. So I think anything dropping down to anything below 10th next season won't be acceptable. But I think definitely strike while the iron's hot and while momentum's in your favour. Tom, it's been brilliant to have you with us for the first time. Just before we let you go, just give us a bit of a look ahead now. We've done all the looking back, just a look ahead between now and the end of the season. about your thoughts on whether you think West Ham can do it, and what do you think will happen with Lionel Messi at the end of the season? Reports suggesting United want 40 million quid for him. We paid sums in excess of that for Felipe Anderson and Sebastian Haller. So if you're asking me, I'm saying pay it. But what do you think will happen for West Ham by the end of the season, and with the Lingard situation?
So we have a little predictor gadget that goes up on the website every week or so, and you go through every game, every match till the end of the season. And I've done it a couple of times, and both times I've had West Ham finishing fifth. But on both occasions, I've put the games with Leicester and Chelsea down as draws. And a win against Leicester, and then my prediction would then change, and it would be West Ham in fourth. It is that close. Like I had them. I think the first time I did it, I had them finishing fifth, but on goal difference. And the second time I did it, it was fifth, but by points. So that was with draws in those two games. There's news out from Leicester that excuse the pronunciation, I think it's Soyuncu, their centre back. He's out this weekend. He had a COVID test, so it's obviously Rice picked up an injury on international duty, but other clubs have picked up issues on international duty as well. I think it's going to be really, really close. I really do, and I've said fifth a couple of times. But this time next week, if there's 3 points in the bag against Leicester, then I'll probably come on and say, fourth, why not, lads? But I'll stick with what I've done a couple of times, because, as I say, I've been through every game twice, and I did have them winning against Wolves on both of those occasions. So I'm sticking with fifth, but I mean, I really do want fourth. It would be absolutely brilliant to have some Champions League football there next season. And Champions League, Lingard guaranteed comes back. That's no inside information. That's just an opinion. I think it'd be too good to turn down for him. Europa League, I think he wants to join. It's a catch-22. The better he plays, the higher his price goes, because there was no option to buy put in the clause. And I don't think that's something you can blame the board for. I think that came from Man United's end. I think they knew that if he does well, then they can put the price up, but also there'll be other teams who are interested in. And there's rumours a few weeks ago about Leicester, and it's one of those things. If West Ham finish fifth and Leicester finish third and they come in for him, you could understand him wanting to make that move. But then he's also got 6 months down here where he loves it. He absolutely loves it. He loves the players. He loves the team. He's back in the England squad. If it's proved to him that he can reach his goals at West Ham, which is brilliant. And it's going to be expensive. Yeah, I don't think 40 million is going to be realistic, because he's got 12 months on his contract at the end of this season. I think those reports come out, and it's a bargaining chip, and it will. There'll be to and fro in over the summer, but I think a deal will be done. And I've heard it from a couple of guys I know who are very close, at West Ham. They've got really good sources and stuff, and they have said that Lingard wants to come, the club want him to come, and it is just striking a deal with Man United. And I don't think it's going to be 15, 16 million, but I also don't think it's going to be 40. I think if you're looking somewhere around the £25 million mark, it's a deal that's got to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, well, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on. I think that debut, lads, wouldn't you agree, is about as good as Jesse Lingard's was for West Ham. Absolutely wonderful to have you join us, Tom. Hopefully won't be for the first, but definitely not the last time. It'd be great to have you on towards the end of the season as the run-in hots up. Hope you enjoy the next few games, and sounds like you have been so far. And I think that's it, everyone. All the Football.London readers have already forgotten about Sam Minkato, and other We Are West Ham listeners have done exactly the same. Tom Clark there, West Ham correspondent for Football.London. Thanks so much for joining us, and stay with us, because next we've got the Betway tips. So Tom Clark from Football.London there. Absolutely brilliant to have Tom join us for the first time on the We Are West Ham podcast. One of the privileged few, as we mentioned, who gets to go to every single West Ham United game, home and away. So great to have Tom join us for that little bit of additional insight on what's going on inside the stadiums where West Ham are romping their way towards the Champions League. Lads, the Betway charity bets, it's time for that. Tom, I don't know what to say, mate. I just don't know what to say. So close, so close again. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but was yours a 16-1 shot? Your bet
16-1,
against
yeah.
Wolves?
Yeah,
16-1. You have been flagging behind a little bit on the old leaderboard this season so far, trying to raise money for Isla's fight, thanks to the £50 charity bet stake that we get from Betway each week to put on a 3-bet West Ham bet selection of our choice. Tom, last week went 4, both teams to score, tick. Jesse Lingard to score first, tick. More than 8.5 corners, cross. I think there were 6 corners in the game, Tom, am I right?
6 this weekend, 6 on Monday, and there was 8 on the Arsenal game. So they would have been 2 back-to-back winners, both lost on corners. And
that's the only thing you've lost on.
Yeah, that's the only, and that's the 4. I look back, I think that's the 3rd or 4th time I've lost on corners this season. So bit of a nightmare, but I feel like the tide is turning. I think one of these will come in. It's surely got to at the minute. It was a frustrating one, but at least Ida and all of us could at least enjoy a win this time, and we weren't pegged back for a 3-3. So thank God for that.
That is true, mate. No, I was absolutely gutted though. When Lingard scored first and then they scored, I was like, happy days. I was like, easily, surely the corners has got to come in this week.
Yeah.
And it was only after the end of the game, and I was nervous about the result anyway. I checked and I couldn't believe it. Just by 3 corners more you needed. But look, unlucky, mate. It's a good shout on the Lingard first score and the both teams to score. James, you were a little bit further away. You were doing all right though. You went Jesse Lingard to score any time, under 2.5 goals, and West Ham to win to 0. So you were thinking it was going to be a bit more convincing. Obviously wasn't to be in the end. I'm a bit annoyed about this because I know you touched it on the podcast last week in my absence, but my bet prior to interference from James Jones and Chaddy Omans from Betway last week was West Ham to win, no penalty to be awarded, and a goal in each half. Okay, it might only have been 3-1, but I'd have won another £150 for the Bobby Moore Fund, which would have been doubled by Betway. So it'd have been an extra 300 quid in the bin for the Bobby Moore Fund. But no, I got abuse from both of you in the WhatsApp chat leading up to it. Change it, go big or go home. That's what you said. And look, I went, change it to penalty to be awarded. That was obviously never going to happen. So, but the losing bet lost. So really, James, you should be donating £300 of your own money to the Bobby Moore Fund, if you ask me.
I'm not having that. Don't pull me into this. You try playing it safe. And Chad pretty much said, no, you can't do that because the odds are just too rubbish.
He said that's going to be a really low price. And then
so
you
I
chimed in with,
I popped in and went, well, come on, mate, grab here, let's crack on with it.
You said, do another one, go big or go home.
Yeah, I
did another one off the back of that, and that's denied the Bobby Moore Fund £300 of hard-earned
You're your
money.
own man. You're your own man. You could have gone, no, I'll stick to my guns. Chad, just price it up, mate. I know what I'm doing, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough, mate. Yeah, shouldn't have been a sheep. A very good life lesson there. But look, so very close to winning some money for our charities. Just to recap, I'm playing for the Bobby Moore Fund. James Jones is playing for the DT38 Dylan Tombides Foundation. Tom Edwards for Isla's fight. But with the money that Betway have agreed to double our winnings at the end of the season, we have raised over £6,000 for all 3 of those charities so far, which is brilliant stuff. Looking ahead then, lads, to that game that we will talk about with Jake Watson from TalkSport in the next section is Leicester City at home Sunday afternoon, 2:05 kickoff at the London Stadium. Huge game, huge clash in the Champions League. I've gone both teams to score, Craig Dawson to score anytime, and Leicester to score last. I just fancy Dawson again. I think it will be a cagey affair at the London Stadium, and I think any goals that West Ham score particularly are likely to come from set pieces. So Dawson was looking pretty red hot in front of goal recently, wasn't he? So I fancy Big Craig to notch. I wasn't willing to pin my flag to the mast on a result because I think that could easily go either way. So Tom, what have you gone for Sunday against Leicester?
I've pushed the boat out a bit and try to get a big win at the end of the season. Both teams to score, West Ham to win, and Noble to score anytime. Jonesy reminded me it'll be a 400th Premier League appearance on a weekend. It just smells of Noble stepping up to do something iconic and send us the heady heights of 4th, and solidly
Yeah, breathing down the neck of Leicester in third. That's the other thing that no one's talking about. Everyone's going, "Oh, can we finish fourth? Can we finish third?" James, what have you gone for?
I've mixed up a little bit. I was very tempted to, because I think it was the Leicester game earlier this season where Leicester had that last-minute goal ruled out, and it stopped me and Tom winning our bets. So Betway sort of Chad very kindly said that he'd still pay 60 quid to each one. So I thought, do you know what? I might just repeat that bet that we had in the Leicester game. I think that was West Ham to win, both teams to score, and Jarrett Bowen to score any time. But I haven't done that. Instead, I've gone both teams to score, Jarrett Bowen to score any time, and Jesse Lingard to have 3 or more shots on target. I thought I'd mix it up a little bit.
That's not a bad one. I saw, a few friends of mine won some money the other night on a similar bet. Just Jesse Lingard to have 2+ shots on target. It was 5-1, I think, and they had a few quid on that, and that came in very, very quickly indeed. So I like the sound of that, Jonesy. And fingers crossed, it's been a bit of a barren spell for a few weeks, hasn't it? Even though you and Chad talked me out of winning money last week, I'll be on to Chad, I think, later on tonight. The more I think about it, I think the pair of you should go halves and donate half of that money each to the charity fund. Absolutely disgraceful stuff. But like you say, Jonesy, I've learned to grow a bit of backbone myself and stop being a sheep. And any more persuasion by either of you will be swiftly ignored in the future. Well, look, lads, we'll have to move on quickly, because one man who should be able to tell us whether these bets have got any chance of coming in or not is Jake Watson, outstanding presenter and producer of the TalkSport 2 breakfast show Sports Day with Paul Coyte every morning. He's a huge Leicester City fan, but what he might be well known to most of you, or most well known to most of you for, is his presenting of the West Ham show in the old days at Love Sport Radio. More than a year ago now, that, Jonesy, wasn't it, when Jake was sitting in the hot seat in the studio in Southwark? But yeah, those of you who've listened to us for a while and used to listen to when it was the live radio show will remember Jake, of course, and he's coming up next with the opposition view. So Betway charity bets there. Me and the lads, Tom, just unlucky, Tom. But hopefully we can add a few more quid, over £6,000 raised for our charities this season. So it's great stuff. Moving on, one man who might be able to let us know whether our bets have got any chance of winning this week or not is Jake Watson, Talk Sport's very own Leicester aficionado, Jake Watson. But some of you who've listened to the podcast since the early days of We Are West Ham, and formerly the West Ham show on Love Sport Radio, will of course remember Jake's dulcet tones as the presenter. Jake, lovely to have you with us again, reminiscing about the old days, me, you and James Jones tucked up into that grubby little studio in Southwark every Tuesday night chatting West Ham. How's things?
Yeah, mate. Some happy memories. It was good fun, wasn't it? It's all good. I'm very well, and I think I get the feeling that you guys, as West Ham supporters, are a lot better than perhaps we were back then doing those shows. So I'd imagine a completely different world for you guys right now.
Yeah. It's somewhat more of a positive environment than perhaps it would have been in the old the Love Sport Radio days. Me and James just desperately, frantically trying to find any positive that we could feel cheerful about. But thanks, you've worn a very nice retro Leicester shirt. Then would Tony Cottee have ever worn that one? Is that the same sort of era? Muzzy, is it? Number 6.
Yeah, it is the same era. Yeah, you bang on, and you can get a Tony Cottee version of this one. But I went for my idol growing up, which was the one and only Muzzy, is it?
Muzzy, is it? What a legend. Well, look, Jake, on as far as on pitch matters go, Leicester third, West Ham just one place behind, breathing down your necks. 4 points behind, though. You don't look particularly nervous, mate. Are you concerned at all about the weekend's game?
Yeah, I am. Well, am I concerned? I wouldn't necessarily say concerned, but look, there's no escaping. This is an absolutely huge game, and I'd suggest more so for Leicester than West Ham, in the sense of I genuinely think this is a make or break game for Leicester, in the sense that if we beat West Ham on Sunday, I think we're there. I really do. I think that would give us such a kind of a nice gap over you guys. And I think about an 8 gap or 9 point gap with 7 games left. We've then got, after you, we've got a run of games of Newcastle, Palace, West Brom and Southampton, which I'm fairly confident of winning at least 3 of those 4. So yeah, if we can win on Sunday, we are, I think, psychologically nearly there. But if we lose, which is very possible because you guys are playing so well at the moment, it is going to make the whole thing that little bit kind of more nervy. But, you know, we've been here before, and I'm a lot more relaxed and confident and comfortable with Leicester as a team than what I was 12 months ago. So I'm okay, if I'm completely honest.
Jake, how important is, well, I suppose it's a bit of a silly question. James Maddison's fit now, isn't he? So he should be back. But in terms of Soyuncu, obviously, I think he's got a positive COVID test. You're going to be missing him. Does that concern you a little bit in that you haven't got, you know, the commanding centre back that he is, sort of there to protect you against the likes of West Ham's attacking geniuses like, you know, Fornals and Lingard and all the rest of it?
Do you know what? It's a really interesting one because with Maddison coming back, as you say, Harvey Barnes still out. We've kind of been forced to play this new formation, which is seeing Iheanacho play up front, and then has played the 3 centre halves. And we're really fortunate that we've got 3 really good centre halves in Johnny Evans, Shaglar Soyuncu, and Wesley Fofana. Now, it took a little while for those 3 to get used to playing as a 3 because it wasn't natural and normal to them. But in recent weeks, they've looked really, really good. So with Cags getting COVID out on international duty, it does kind of give us a little bit of a headache in terms of what we do, because we're going to want to fit Maddison back in the team. We also want to kind of keep Iheanacho back in the team. So lots of fans are a little bit unsure with whether we just go 4-4-2 and put Wesley Fofana and Johnny Evans as the centre halves, or we do what we did against Man City and bring Dan Amartey into that central position. And I think Brendan will play pretty much the exact same team that played against Man City, with Dan Amartey as a centre half, and possibly Maddison in for Perez as the only change. But I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks with the exact same lineup as what played against Man City.
Jay, you mentioned Wesley Fofana there, and he's a centre back that we were looking at and missed out on, and I've been unbelievably impressed with him since he first arrived. You've seen a lot of good centre backs, sadly, at your place in the last few years. How highly do you think his ceiling is? Because he looks like he's the real deal, him.
It's quite scary how good he is. I remember you guys were interested. I'd completely forgotten about that, to be honest. I mean, when we signed him, I think he played less than 20 professional games of football, and Leicester went and paid over 30 million quid for him. And in his first game, you suddenly realised, wow, this guy's got something about him, and he's got everything. He's so aggressive in the way he defends. He's quick. He's confident on the ball. And as I said, he's just turned 20 years of age, and playing in defence alongside someone like Johnny Evans, it's obviously been really beneficial to him. And if you're going to kind of slap price tags, because that's what you know how this works as West Ham fans. As soon as a decent player who plays well for a season, they've been linked with 60, 70, 80 million pound moves elsewhere. I think his ceiling is significantly higher than, say, for instance, Evans and Soyuncu. And you look at the price tag of someone like Harry Maguire. If you're going to start slapping price tags on someone, then he's already at least doubled what we paid for him. Let's put it that way.
Jake, Kelechi Iheanacho, you mentioned him there, has absolutely come into his own recently. I don't think, I think he's always been the sort of player that other fans would look at, especially a club like ours, and go, yeah, we wouldn't mind having someone like him to come off the bench when Antonio's injured. That's a decent little backup striker. He's the sort of bloke that you could see going to play at Tottenham for the odd game that Harry Kane doesn't get in the team, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, recent weeks, he's sort of trying to force his way to the front, elbowing Jamie Vardy out the way, scoring goals left, right and centre. What's happened to him? Is it the system change you mentioned there, or has he just had a new lease of life?
Yeah, I think it's the system change, but it's quite miraculous though, isn't it? I mean, let's compare him to Lingard. The 2 players that were completely at times forgotten, and I'd say that even some Premier League fans would even mock to a certain extent. Would say that they were useless. But the pair of them were the 2 best players in the Premier League last month. And let's not forget, earlier on in the season, it was just after Christmas, Jamie Vardy was out for a few weeks. And Brendan Rodgers didn't even play Iheanacho. He decided to go with Ayoze Perez as the lone striker, as kind of like a false 9. So even then, you'd say that Brendan still wasn't completely convinced by by what Iheanacho brought to the table. But he got his opportunity. It is due to that formation change, him and Vardy playing up front together, and it's been quite incredible to watch because, you know, over the years, as brilliant as someone like Jamie Vardy's been, he's often very isolated. You know, it's not uncommon to hear stats at half time saying Vardy's touched the ball 3 or 4 times, and just by putting Iheanacho up next to him, it's completely changed the dynamic for Leicester. And as you've seen, it's completely, you know, I'd say almost reinvigorated, but we've
just
never
invigorated.
We've never seen him play this well before, even when he was kind of that youngster coming through at Man City. So it's been brilliant to see because he's a great guy, is Iheanacho, and he's loved lots, and he's just signed a new contract. You know, just off the back really of this incredible run. So clearly people like him and clearly people rate him. But I think even Brendan would be lying if he said that he knew that he had this kind of form in him.
Yeah. No, I saw his interview a couple of weeks ago after the hat-trick he scored. Really emotional, and yeah, it's good to see stuff like that. But Jake, the West Ham Leicester Sunday, 11th of April, 2:05 kickoff, one of those weird ones. How do you see the game playing out? You mentioned the system there. For those listening who might not have watched as much of Leicester recently, what sort of system can West Ham expect to be up against formation-wise and personnel, and how do you think the game will play out style-wise?
Yeah, it will be interesting style-wise because let's not forget the return fixture when you beat us at our place and did it quite comfortably, and it was quite it was one of those games that has happened quite frequently with Leicester, of being at home and not being able to break down the opposition and then being hit on the counter, and West Ham did it so well against us. But that's kind of the way that we play when we're away from home. You know, we've lost one game away from home all season, and that was at Anfield. You know,
it's phenomenal,
we've
that,
got
isn't
the
it?
best record in the Premier League. So going into away games, we're significantly more confident and comfortable than we are for the home game. So I suspect he will line up with a 3-5-2 with wing backs of probably Pereira and Castagna, potentially Maddison in for Perez, and then hopefully that front of Iheanacho and Vardy. And you know, it's a team which can kind of do both, in the sense of it can soak up that pressure and hit you on the counter if it needs to. But at the same time, if you allow us to have the ball, they're confident and comfortable to be able to do that. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how the game plays out because that kind of relies or depends a little bit on how West Ham play, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Lads, James, are you envisaging that we do the same thing? Because we've said, haven't we, that the having no fans in has allowed West Ham to make London Stadium a bit more of a fortress than it ever has been, but also play a bit more of a patient brand of football as well, where we're not necessarily, you know, being urged on to the players aren't being urged out of shape by the crowd or anything like that. Against a team like Leicester, who we've seen it when we played United, or when United came to the London Stadium earlier in the season, we looked good in flashes in that first half and then got stung really quickly on the counter-attack. How do you reckon we're going to approach the game?
It's difficult. I mean, I think we've got the 3rd best home record in the league this season. I mean, we've been really, really good at home. But that said, against teams that have come to London Stadium and sat back a little bit and looked to catch us on the break, we've really struggled to break teams down. I think Fulham causes problems, Villa causes problems. I think Palace did the same thing and caught us on the break many a time. And Man United did it perfectly, as you said. So I think that could be a difficult one for us. And as Jake said, I mean, that's essentially how Leicester won the Premier League a few years ago as well, just catching teams on the counter, soaking it all up, and then going. So, I mean, if that's how the game's going to be won, it's just who can counter better. I think that's where it's going to be won at the weekend, because we won't be. I don't think we will do well just trying to chip away at the defence and trying to get a break in, because we really struggle when we've got a lot of the ball, I think.
Yeah, I do worry, Tom, about having Jared Bowen, if it looks like he's playing up front instead of Antonio against the 3 at the back system. You do worry whether our attacking threat will be quite easily nullified, and then if you're relying on Souček and Noble's legs in the middle to carry the team forward on those counter attacks that we're going to rely on, you do worry whether it could end up being one of those where neither team really wants the ball that much, and it ends up as a stale 1-1 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that not plays into our hands. No Rice is obviously the worst thing that could have happened to this football team, but it does mean that we won't be able to control possession in that game. No chance. Souček and Noble won't be able to compete physically with Ndidi and Tielemans and da-da-da. So they will have the lion's share of the possession. I'm pretty sure of that, because they'll most likely win that midfield battle. And I think that could play into our hands. I mean, we'll risk Rice, and I think it'll be scrappy. Both teams won't want to lose this one. I think a point sort of isn't a bad result for either of them. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it, KG. I think the nerves will start playing sooner or later with West Ham, and we'll stop seeing 3-2s and 3-0s sooner rather than later. And I reckon it'll start this weekend.
Yeah, Jake, before we let you go, what's your score prediction for the game on Sunday?
Oh, honestly, I really don't know. I do think that Tom is probably right in the sense of it'll probably be cagey, because I think that both teams will recognise that there's a huge amount on this. But then that being said, most of the West Ham games in recent weeks have been full of goals. So I suspect there'll be a few goals in it. Naturally, and obviously, I'm going to have to predict a Leicester win. I can't predict anything other. But I'm going to go with 3-2 to Leicester. I think it'll be plenty going on. Maybe Leicester to take a 3-1 lead and then make it very, very nervy, just like we all like to do late on in that game. But hopefully, just about hold on.
Absolutely. Well, 3-2 to Leicester from Jake there. James, I know last week when I was off, the Matt from the Wolves fan cast, he went for a draw, didn't he? And we ended up thrashing them. So we have had quite a few opponents predict their team are going to win this season, and then we go and turn them over. So not too concerned about that from Jake. But what are you saying, James?
As I said, I'm a little bit worried about it. But I do agree with Tom that I think a point probably suits both teams. But it wouldn't be the worst result for both teams. So I'm going to go for a 1-0. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, that sort of echoes my sentiments. Tom, what are you saying score-wise?
Yeah, I'm going to blindly follow my bet, and everything I said went out the window. So I'm going 2-1 West Ham, Noble last-minute bicycle kick.
Bicycle kick, yeah. I can maybe see Noble going from the spot, but I don't know. I still think there's a 0-0 round the corner for some reason. I know we seem wild and ready to score and let them in recently, but so I do fancy a 1-0, James, as well, but just to be different, I'll go for 0-0. Well, look, Jake, wonderful to have you back with us again. Just a shame you're not that we're not all in person and you're not sitting across the table from me and Jonesy trying to scrape some positives to make an hour of radio like we were before. But wonderful to have you with us. Thanks for wearing your Muzzy Is It shirt. We'll call it a Tony Cottee one, and fingers crossed that both of our teams can finish in the Champions League places this season. What an upset turn up for the book that would be, eh?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I was just going to say, Leicester the last couple of seasons and a few years back managed to do it. It is very, very rarely done, as we know. The teams outside that big six managed to get in the top four. I think it would be absolutely brilliant if Leicester and West Ham managed to finish in that top four this season to kind of really shake things up, and it'd be great to see us both in the Champions League when it next season.
Exactly, mate. Absolutely. Well, look, Jake Watson there of TalkSport Infamy, massive Leicester fan and former host of the West Ham show on Love Sport Radio. Brilliant to have you joining us, Jake, and stay with us because it's Name That Game next. A blast from the past that was, boys. Jake Watson. Great to hear from Jake again. Big time producer now at TalkSport 2, but wonderful to have his voice, just to hark back to those old days when he used to present me and you, James, in the studio in Southwark, getting very, very, very depressed about West Ham trudging our way. And mind you, we'd normally been to the pub in those days, didn't we, to have a couple of pints either before or after the show. So they were enjoyable enough just for that. I think if we'd had to carry it on like we are at the moment, just over Zoom without the beers while West Ham were playing like we were at that time, I don't think it'd be doable, would it?
Definitely not. Nah. I mean, that's why I used to say, mate, meet me in a pub 2 hours before, just to make it a little bit easier. But yeah, no, it's good. Good to see Jake.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we've got to name that game now, Tom. You're the quiz master this week. An opportunity finally for me and Jones to try and claw some points back on you. You are sitting pretty at the top of the leaderboard at the moment with a 6-point lead over me. Tom, you're on 43 points. I'm second with 37. James is bottom with 34, 3 points behind me, and a whopping 9 points behind you, Tom Edwards. For any new listeners, this is Name That Game. Each week, the quiz master, which this week is Tom, picks a West Ham match from history and collates 7 necessary pieces of information about that game. They are obscure fact, scoreline only, one opposition goal scorer, or an alternate fact if there's none, a West Ham goal scorer, an alternate fact if there's none, the stadium in which the game was played, West Ham's opponent, and the season. If it's still a tie at that stage, it goes to the tie break, which is the exact year the game took place. It's a point for each piece of information the lads can guess as the quizmaster reveals them one by one. Thomas Edwards, I always like your games, Tom. You always pick decent ones out of the bag. I'm sure you've done the same again this week, so take it away.
Oh, so this one, the obscure, I appreciate that, by the way. Love that build up. But it is the obscure fact this week is it's the last time we beat Leicester City at home.
Oh. Well, I think I know who the opponent is.
Oh yeah, sorry. I've got two. I'll do a new one.
Can I guess that one first? Oh, what a shambles. What a shambles.
Build up as well.
No, I'm just telling everyone how good you are and how much I enjoy it when you're the quizmaster. And he's giving away clue number 6 in the first clue. Well, James, where do we go from here?
You got another one, Tom?
Yeah, do another one. We could do another one quickly then.
Absolute shambles. Right, clue number 1 for game number 2.
All right.
Manchester United won 3-1 Upton Park in this game.
Yeah,
all right, cheers, Tom.
Oh, fuck up,
he's on a stinker. See, normally, James, people listening at home would think this sort of thing goes on behind the curtain quite a lot, and that any self-respecting professional podcast would edit this out. But I'm assuming that we're gonna keep it in, are we, Jonesy?
Yeah, keep it in. Yeah. You got to keep it in.
Yeah,
exactly.
maybe not the looking part though, because that could take an hour. Be back to me and come back in 9, boys.
Oh, we've already established.
While you're looking, you might as well tell us about the game.
Yeah, I'll tell you about this game. We went, funnily enough, we went into 4th. The win took us 4th. We won 2-0. Carroll Downing. It was in the 2014-15 season under Allardyce. If you guys remember, it was that back pass that Carroll latched onto. It had that nice little dink finish.
I remember that.
At West Ham, or
it was at Upton Park. Yeah.
All right. God, that'd have been lucky because I would have had a clue on those.
Well, I also gave it that away.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Look, James, I think we've already established earlier in the podcast, haven't we, that fans already hold Tom in a much higher esteem than they do me or you. So perhaps the calamitous introduction to Name That Game will encourage fans to perhaps, bring Tom off that pedestal somewhat.
I don't think so, because it's things like this that sort of make Tom a bit like a lovable rogue. Like he's
adds to the charm, doesn't it?
That's why the listeners and the fans love him, because you never know what to expect with him. You never know.
You don't know if
he's just got that relatability, isn't he?
That's it. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Go on then, Tom.
This win ended our longest run without a win away from home in the Premier League.
Ooh.
I'm going to go for scoreline.
Okay.
Is it 4-1?
It is not 4-1.
Our longest run without a win away from home in the Prem. That feels quite recent. Okay, I'm going to go 3-0.
Both incorrect.
Oh, what was the score?
Scoreline was 3-1.
Oh, agonising. Right, Jonesy, do you want to have a go at opposition goal scorer?
Yeah, do you know what I think? Opposition goal scorer. I think I know the game.
Well, tell me who scored for the opposition then.
Is it Alex Pritchard?
It's not Alex Pritchard.
Ooh, I don't even know Alex Pritchard plays for or played for. I'm gonna go Josh King.
Incorrect. It was Aaron Hughes who scored the goal for them.
Oh, Jonesy, West Ham goal scorer then.
Hughes.
Yeah,
No,
I know.
it's not the game I was thinking of then.
Me neither.
Aaron Hughes. Oh, what era is that?
He played for about 15 years, so it could,
Yeah, no, yeah.
Could be,
anyone, mate.
could be the entire Premier League era.
He was such a beige Premier League footballer.
I'll
wasn't
take
he?
a 0-0,
Proper-
by the way. I'm enjoying this.
Proper journeyman. Go on, James.
West Ham goal scorer. I don't know. I'm just going to say Paolo.
No.
I'm gonna say Kevin Nolan.
No.
Oh, what a
You can have
shocker
another
this
guess. You've got to have another guess on the scorers for some points here.
is. Go on then, James. You can go first.
Aaron Hughes. I mean, didn't he play for about 30 different clubs as well?
No, we'll stick with the rules, Tom. Don't worry about guessing again, James. You have a crack at stadium.
That's what I mean. He's played for about 30 different clubs. It could be anyone.
Saying, right.
I don't know. Aaron Hughes. I can't remember who he played for.
the worst instalment of Name That Game.
Yeah, I don't know what. Do you know what? I'm gonna go the Valley.
No.
Valley Parade. No.
No.
St James's Park.
No.
Oh no!
The ground was Craven Cottage.
Ah, what a joke! What a
Right,
joke!
All right. Well, I'll go with the opponent is Fulham.
Correct.
That is a disgrace. That is.
Season.
Did you tell us who the West Ham goal scorer was, by the way?
I didn't actually. It was because maybe we might have to come back for that. But if you're not on it, if you don't want the points, I'll let you know.
Go on, let us know who it is.
It was a double for Colton Cole and one for Freddie Pickion.
Ah,
Oh,
oh.
that's made it a bit easier for the year, isn't it?
All right, settle down. Right, this is my worst question. Right, hang on, let me think for a minute. This isn't going to make for good podcasting or radio, but I always get this wrong. 2000 and always get this wrong. Right. 2014-15.
Incorrect.
Ah, stinker. I hate this game.
Is it 2010, 2011?
That is correct, Jonesy.
Oh,
Absolutely.
blimey. Oh,
It's the season we went down.
Yep, it was over a year
Yeah.
we'd gone. It was over a calendar year we'd gone without winning an away game. And it was Avram Grant and it was all makeshift, Danny Gabardon, all sorts of those guys playing at right back, all out of position.
God, that is a shocker. That is a 2-0. That's got to be the worst segment of Name That Game we've ever done.
I think
hold my
that
hands
was the best.
I
I'm
can
looking
only
forward to
hold
listening
my
back
hands
tomorrow.
Absolutely minging. Well, look, James, I mean, it's a great result for Tom. James, that pushes you up to 36 points, just one behind me, and I stay on 37. That could be the first nil I think we've ever had in the history of Name That Game. So, Tom, brilliant result for you. You stay on 43 points. I'm in second on 37. James Jones closes the gap to 36. I am Quizmaster next week. So stay with us because it's West Ham Women next. So after the worst ever installment of Name That Game, perhaps the worst quiz section on any podcast in the history of podcasting, lads, I think. But we got there in the end. James Jones swept the 2-0 win and another team who did some victory sweeping. I mean, that's again the worst episode of Name That Game, the worst link I've ever done in my podcasting presenting history. Perhaps Steve Brooker was right all along. I shouldn't be doing this, boys. I just can't cope. But West Ham women won 5-0 against Reading. They were 5-0 up at half time. All the doom and gloom there's been on the We Are West Ham podcast the past few weeks. Well, what a performance and what a result. Nobody at all saw that coming. I don't think it's fair to say they struggled against Birmingham City the week before, threw away that lead right at the death. And I mean, out of nowhere, 5-0 up at half time. James, stunning stuff. You were texting it through in the WhatsApp group. I only managed to get the game on at half time, thinking, well, I'm obviously going to see a few more goals. Didn't see any because I missed the first half. But you were texting through on the WhatsApp chat with the great news that the goals were just going in and in and in. I can't believe it. Can you?
No, I'm still trying to get my head around it, really, because, last week when we had Catherine Batt on, we were saying how big a game it was, and, the survival's still in their hands, but, they've got to start picking up the points, and they've got Villa twice. It's going to be massive, and just we kind of all agreed that, it's going to be, expecting it to be a bit of a tight affair, and I'd actually completely forgot. I thought kickoff was a little bit later in the day, so next thing I know, I'm getting these goal alerts through on my live score app, going 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, and I'm like, hang on, what on earth's gone on here? And you're kind of hoping that they would just push on and maybe score a few more in the second half just for the goal difference. But it's done the team a world of good in terms of confidence, and they go into those two games against Villa. Knowing that they probably don't need to win both of them now. They could probably just get a one win if they can't win both, and still be pretty safe. They've got 2 games in hand on Bristol City as well, so it's just huge for confidence and morale within the squad, and great for Ollie Harder to get his first league win.
Yeah, absolutely delighted with that, mate. You're right. I mean, the fact no one could see it coming is neither here nor there, really. The fact is, and the important part of it is that it came, and yeah, just delighted for the girls. So West Ham now 10th in the WSL, moved up from bottom place 12th, where Aston Villa currently sits. So West Ham played 17 on 12 points. Bristol City in 11th, who played 19 on 11 points. And Aston Villa, rock bottom, played the same amount of games as West Ham, but 2 points behind with 10. As you mentioned there, Jonesy, we've still got to play them twice, of course. So they do become absolutely huge games now. Obviously haven't got to play Bristol City again, but Bristol played those 2 more games than us already. Tom, I mean, there's no more, you couldn't have asked for anything better than that, could you? Like James mentioned there, confidence, morale within the squad. It'll give Ollie Harder a boost, no doubt. Just, I mean, wow, first of all, but it's just only positives to be said about that.
Exactly. Yeah, unbelievable. Just the manner you tend to see results grinded out at the bottom when you're in that type of trouble. To go there and stick 5 in the first half was truly sensational. And credit to Catherine, who came on last week and said she thought Martha Thomas might have a thing to say for the rest of the season. And boy, did she. That hat trick will do her the world of good, and she'll hopefully go on a bit of a run now and find a form that we all know that she has in those boots. And it was amazing looking over the goals and seeing it. Some of the football the girls played was superb at times when they got in that lead. So fingers crossed. Ollie Hard is clearly doing something right to keep the girls switched on and focused, and to have that performance considering all the bad results and all the bad luck that has gone against them this season. So huge result, and let's hope they kick on, because it's all looking really exciting in the WSL with all the TV deal and everything. So it's imperative we're involved next year, and with results like that, surely you've got to start thinking it might be a possibility again.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to come good and going to start, the new manager's instructions start taking hold, now is the time. So goals from Kenza Dali opened the scoring on 7 minutes, Katerina Svitkova on 10, before Martha Thomas with 3 goals on 11, 29 and 37 put the Hammers into a 5-0 commanding lead at half-time, and just saw the game out in the second half. One hilarious thing that did make me laugh, lads, was we won 5-0 and only had 39% possession. which is quite some achievement. But yeah, but just brilliant stuff from the girls now. And I think one thing, lads, which is quite encouraging, that we could potentially start looking up as well, if we're going to carry that form into the next few games that we've got. So we're 10th place on 12 points. Birmingham are in 9th. They've played a game more and they're just a point above us. Obviously, we drew with them the other week, which was unfortunate right at the death. Tottenham, who are 2 places above us in 8th, they're on 19 points, but only 5 points ahead of us. So if we string a couple of wins together, you could be looking at perhaps a lower mid-table finish after all, which would obviously be quite something. But James, what do you put that down to? Because it's fair to say that we've had WSL experts, high level sports journalists on this podcast all throughout the season, talking about all things West Ham women, and we weren't the only ones who were really concerned about the state of things. Where do you think that came from at the weekend? Obviously, we said they might got some hope from the Birmingham game before that was a disappointing end, but no one saw it coming, did they?
No, I don't. And like Reading are a strange side this season. They beat by West Ham, relegation threat, and West Ham 5-0 at home. But they won at Man United away. They've drawn with Everton. They've drawn with Arsenal. It's just they're a strange side. But then they drop points against the likes of West Ham and Bristol City. I don't know whether there's an element of complacency from Reading's part in that they just thought, I think they haven't really got a great deal to play for. Not going to finish in the Champions League places. They're not going to go down. But then I'd like to say that it's just we've seen just snippets of some improvement with every week. There's been it was a bad result, but that was a positive. That's another positive. I think maybe that game at the weekend, it all finally came together for Ollie Harder and the team. And it's quite clear just looking at the goals and the celebrations and you see on social media, it's clearly a tight-knit squad. They're all trying to put in the right direction. I just don't think they've had, they haven't had the rub of the green really. And see that late goal against Birmingham a couple of weeks ago obviously hurt them. But yeah, I think it's a mixture of Reading just being so inconsistent and finally it all clicking in one 45-minute spell for the team. And long may that continue because they put themselves in a great position now.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Tom, one interesting thing. West Ham's next game, no game now for another 12 days from today, which is Tuesday when we're recording. The next game, Sunday, the 18th of April, is the FA Cup 4th round. The 3rd round games are taking place this weekend. West Ham not quite involved yet. Obviously they're coming in at that later stage in the tournament, as is seen in the men's game when the higher ranked teams come in later on. So West Ham coming in for the 4th round. They're obviously after the 3rd round games take place this weekend. Then we'll see the draw. So we still don't know who the girls are playing yet. And then straight after that on the Sunday, they've got a quick turnaround before Aston Villa at home on the Tuesday, then Everton at home, Aston Villa away, and then Manchester City at home. I think it might have been Sandra Brobby from The Sun who came on a couple of weeks ago and said if West Ham are going to stay up, they need to have stayed up before that last game because they're not going to get anything against Man City. I think we can all agree on that. But with that FA Cup, obviously it helped a couple of seasons ago to really promote the profile of the women's team. It engaged loads of the fans of the men's team. I've certainly sat up and took notice that season more than I had before when the girls did really well to get to the FA Cup final at Wembley. Do you think, Tom, that might be a distraction almost, that 4th round game before, I know it's a brilliant win there, but they're still not completely high and dry. They're still not out of it. There's still some serious work to be done in the WSL. Do you find that FA Cup might come a bit of an awkward time for them?
I think it largely depends on who we have in the 4th round when the girls do come in, because that game sits a few days before the Villa game, which is absolutely massive. So as long as we get a winnable tie or at least a tie where we can rest a few players maybe, it shouldn't have too much of a bearing, and it could end up working in our favour, like you mentioned there, in terms of profile and getting the girls' name out and everything. I think it's a massive opportunity, and I would hope that they would still take that competition and give it the respect it deserves, because I think it's probably one of the biggest areas where you can grow the game as a club, and I think we all saw that when they got to the final. So I don't think them and the club should waste that opportunity. But as long as they're focused, the league is, you're right in saying that the league is the most important thing, but we've seen at times where cut forms helped other sides, helped sides down at the bottom. And I just hope that we give both a crack, to be honest with you, because I feel like that win was so big. We've now got a bit of breathing room, and we've got a relatively okay 4 or 5 games to end, I guess, bar the City one. I know Everton are a good side, but the 2 Villa games, we'd like to think we'll get a few points out of those, which will likely see us be safe. So I think it's worth the girls giving a cup of crack, because that's what ultimately got me to start following them. And I think it's a great springboard for others to get on board.
James, you share those thoughts? Because, you know, Tom's mentioned it there, but I think next season, the WSL, fantastic news, is going to be beamed into people's homes. So lots of people who perhaps don't already are going to start sit up and pay attention, as I've already mentioned, to the women's game via that. So I think it's more important, just from a profile point of view, for the girls to be in the league rather than any cup run. Do you share Tom's thoughts there, or do you think that maybe it will be an unwelcome distraction?
I think you've got to look at it as, where's the priority this season? And I think the WSL has to. I mean, the league should always be priority when you're battling down the wrong end of the table. We know that from the men's game, that, you know, as much as we'd love a cup run, when you're battling relegation almost every other season, it's difficult to really warrant it. And I think that applies for the women's team this year. And that, yeah, cup run's great. That run to the FA Cup final a few years ago was great, but particularly with the TV deal, as you mentioned, mate, that's the priority. They need to be in the WSL next season to take advantage and be involved in that TV deal. Otherwise, they're just going to get a little trickle of the money down in the Championship. And I just think, for, you know, if the club wants to go to where Jack Sullivan's ambition is, then, you know, they've got to be in the top division. And you know, I just don't think an FA Cup run is going to do them any favours.
No, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because you kind of think, you know, if they're playing when they get an easy run, it might give them some confidence. But we saw that with the League Cup or the Conti Cup earlier in the season. That didn't happen, did it? Did well to get to the semi-finals, but didn't do any favours for the league form whatsoever. So will be an intriguing one. Lads, just before we go, worth mentioning as well, of course, the news that came out in the week, Birmingham City's women players who nicked that point against West Ham last time out, or before West Ham's great win against Reading, they had that draw against Birmingham City. And, you know, since then, Birmingham's players all of them have written a public letter, or that's been seen by the Sunday Telegraph, basically complaining about facilities, travel, budget restrictions. You know, Birmingham's men's team is in turmoil as well, and complaints raised by the playing staff about the conditions there. The FA have launched a probe, and they're looking in to see whether Birmingham might have actually breached their WSL license. And I think that's one thing that it's fair to say, certainly I had assumed, and you hope that those things have gone out the game. You thought the women's game has come on so much that gone are the days of players arguing over tracksuits because there wasn't enough and the equipment being poor, blah, blah, blah. I see such great deal of funding poured into the teams at the top of that WSL. And even at West Ham as well, you know, the facilities are great for the girls down there, but obviously not the same across the board. Birmingham say they're doing what they can, and the usual platitudes have come out of the club. But just worth noting that, you know, hope that situation gets cleared up pretty soon. But not nice to see, is it, James?
No, it's not, and it surprises me that sort of that's happening in the WSL, because, you know, it's not a part-time semi-pro league. It's a full-on professional league now with a multi-million-pound TV deal. You know, that shouldn't be happening at clubs. You know, okay, some clubs are going to have more funding than others, but you've got to have the basics. You know, you've got to have the bet. You know, just the acceptable basics that every football club should have. You know, those facilities have to be, you know, to a good enough standard, and if they're not, then, you know, you deserve to be punished for it. And, you know, fair play to the players and the coaching staff speaking out and going, you know, this isn't acceptable. You know, how do you expect us to work in these conditions? So, you know, fair play to them, and hopefully Birmingham get their act together and sort it out, because you know, they're a WSL side. They're going to be they should be a WSL side next season as well. So, you know, there'll be no excuse next year when the money comes coming.
No, absolutely, and you sort of hope They're just certainly for the playing staff and the fans of Birmingham's women's team as well. That they've still got a team there next year, because what we don't want to see is club owners, albeit it's irresponsible the way they're running the men's team as well, as we've been able to see the fall of a former Premier League sort of big boys, weren't they? In Wembley finals, beating Arsenal and stuff, and knocking us out of the of the League Cup that same season as well. They were big hitters, weren't they, in the Premier League at one point, Birmingham. So what we don't want to see certainly is women's teams collapsing or players being felt like they're being unfairly treated at a club and a league which next season is going to be at the forefront of everyone's minds, and the biggest women's football league in the world, probably. So fingers crossed that situation gets resolved pretty quickly, and just our support and respect to the Birmingham players for speaking up, as James mentioned there. So big few weeks ahead for the West Ham women's team, big few weeks ahead for the men's team. That's pretty much it for this week, but stay with us because we'll have some final thoughts, Fantasy Premier League update, and we'll say goodbye next. So West Ham women's there, as I mentioned, lads, huge week for both the men's and women's side at West Ham United. Real season definers, of course, for different reasons at opposite ends of their respective tables, but big things ahead. And it could be an exciting few weeks, lads, couldn't it? One thing that is hotting up, James, is the Fantasy Premier League. I mean, you couldn't have written it, given it absolutely massive to me the last couple of weeks. Obviously, we didn't manage to catch up last week because I was absent. But you played your wild card this week. You still finished a point behind me after making it clear to me and to all of our listeners how weak you felt my team was ahead of the upcoming games. You played your wild card, which has enabled you to pick every single player, the cream of the crop of players, and you still couldn't get ahead of my team, which included Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who could just be the worst player on £350,000 a week in the history of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I stand by everything I said a couple of weeks ago, mate. This week was purely down to a poor captain choice from me, and the fact I had Diogo Jota on the bench and Nat Phillips on the bench, and I picked the wrong goalkeeper. So just a couple of really frustrating decisions for me. I think I had 20 points on the bench at the end of the game week. So, but I'm still confident I'm going to catch it. I think it's still only 35 points or something. So I'm still confident.
You say a couple of bad decisions. They are the only decisions you have to make when playing fantasy football, though, aren't they?
Yeah, well, let's not get. That's just small little things, mate. Just small little niggles. Stop being so picky.
Right. Well, I got 56 points in the game week, and I'm on 1,824. James got 55, and he's on 1,785. Tom, you were bottom of the pile this week, mate. Not by a lot. You got 48 points, and you're 1,728. That puts you 96 points behind me, I think, and a few off of Jonesy as well. Looks could be curtains for you.
Yeah, sadly. So I didn't actually change the team this weekend. That was a oversight, and that's what probably saved me. Kane getting the armband was a massive help. Otherwise, I'd be really gone. But yeah, you're probably out of the reckoning now. It's just about finishing inside the top million. How depressing that.
Exactly, mate. You can still catch Jonesy. Things are all changing in the West Ham League as well. Remember Rudy Eagling was top for so long. He's dropped. I think he's in about 18th place now. Tom Connolly still doing well, and Jeremy Pike up the top as well. So it's been an interesting one. That one's coming to a head at the moment. But lads, that is it for the evening. It's been another great show. I'm glad to be back. Nice to speak to you two again, especially off the back of another West Ham United win. We're back in the 4th place with 8 games to go. Just some final thoughts from you on the show, James. Been a good one tonight. Good win for West Ham women. Good to have Tom Clark on. Just good all round.
Yeah, it's funny what a win can do. I mean, if this is what it's like to win every week and be 4th, then I'm all for this. This is what it's like supporting a big club. Talking about potentially finishing in the top 4 and signing world class players like Jesse Lingard. I mean, this is the dream, innit, boys? This is what we've been missing out on. But I'm just hoping now that we continue this run of form and pick up some good results in the final 8 games I think it is. Some massive games against Chelsea, Leicester, and Everton on the way. So get through those, and the job's pretty much done, I think. So yeah, fingers crossed. But I'm positive. I'm going to remain positive, and I'm going to keep crying every time we score because it seems to work.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Emotional stuff from you, Tom. Final thoughts from you before we say goodbye.
Yeah, loved it up until the quiz section where I've mugged myself off quite profoundly. So yeah, apart from that, I had a whirlwind of a time, had a beauty of a time. West Ham winning, big games coming where we're playing Leicester, and it's not for mid-table mediocrity. It's all eyes on the top 4 race, and mental to say that a few years ago when we both came up around similar times, who'd have thought they'd have won a league title, and soon enough we'd be playing for Champions League places. So long may it continue, and yeah, just enjoying it. But the nerves only get worse. So blubbering mess like Jonesy next week.
Absolutely, mate. Well, look, lads, it's been brilliant to be back to have a chat to you two again. Couldn't quite do it from my hospital bed last week, so I'm sorry, but I'm delighted to have taken the hot seat once again on the We Are West Ham podcast. Thanks so much to our guests from tonight, Talk Sports. Jake Watson joined us for the opposition view. Tom Clark, West Ham correspondent for Football.London. It was a great show. James eventually won on Name That Game as well. Do follow us on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham. We're on Instagram as well. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch this whole show as video form if you like, including to see the faces of our guests. The link to our YouTube channel is in the description to this podcast below. Do give us a review on your chosen podcast platform, and you know what, even if you want to do what Steve did and tweet us any negative feedback, that's absolutely fine as well. We love hearing from you guys. You can email us at wearewesthampod@gmail.com as well if you wish, and you can support the podcast or buy me and the lads a beer at buymeacoffee.com/wearewestham if you so fancy. I think that's about it, lads. It's been a brilliant week. What a win for West Ham. We went to the Wolves' den and we came away with all 3 points. And can we do the same with the Foxes this weekend? The Champions League run is still on. The European dream is still alive. West Ham United versus Leicester, Sunday afternoon at London Stadium. This is where the week are sorted from the chaff. Thanks for listening, everyone. Up the hammers, and we'll see you next week.